never spoke about it. Not once. In 50 years of interviews, red carpets, and award ceremonies, Clint Eastwood kept his mouth shut about what really happened in those missing months of 1962. But now we know. The man who would become the most iconic cowboy in cinema history had a secret that was buried deeper than any grave in Boot Hill. Faith the legend begins. Picture this. It is May of 1962. A young, unknown actor named Clint Eastwood steps off a Greyhound bus in the middle of nowhere, Montana. He has got $12 in his pocket, a duffel bag over his shoulder, and a telegram that simply reads, "Report to Clearwater Ranch. Ask no questions. Tell no one." This isn't Hollywood. This isn't a movie set. This is real life. And what happened next would change everything we thought we knew about the man behind the Dirty Harry persona. You see, before Clint Eastwood became the squinting gunslinger of the Wild West, before he directed Oscar-winning films, before he became a legend, he was recruited for something that the government wanted to stay buried forever. For decades, we've been told that Clint spent those months working on a cattle ranch, learning to ride horses and handle weapons for his upcoming Western roles. That is the official story. That is what Hollywood wanted us to believe. But the truth is far more dangerous. Faith, a man behind the mystery, Faye. Let's go back to the beginning. Spring of 1962. The Cold War is at its peak. The Bay of Pigs invasion has failed. Kennedy is in the White House. And America is terrified of Soviet infiltration. What most people don't know is that the CIA was running secret operations, not just overseas, but right here on American soil. And they needed someone who could blend in, someone who looked like a cowboy, someone who could ride, shoot, and most importantly, someone who could keep their mouth shut. Enter Clinton Eastwood Jr., 6'4", ruggedly handsome, fresh out of his Army service. An actor, sure, but a broke one. The kind of man who'd do anything for the right price. The recruitment happened in a bar in Burbank. A man in a cheap suit approached Clint after his shift at a gas station. No names were exchanged, just a business card with an address and a time. "If you are interested in serving your country," the man said, "and making more money than you've ever seen, be there." Clint showed up. Of course he did. He was 28 years old, struggling to make rent, and his acting career was going nowhere fast. What did he have to lose? What he didn't know was that he was about to lose 3 months of his life to an operation so classified that it wouldn't be declassified for another 50 years. Faith, the Clearwater deception. Faith, the Clearwater Ranch wasn't a ranch at all. It was a CIA training facility disguised as a cattle operation in the remote mountains of Montana. From the outside, it looked like any other spread. Cattle, horses, cowboys going about their business. But underground was where the real work happened. Clint was one of 12 men recruited for what the agency called Operation Sagebrush. The mission: to infiltrate and monitor a suspected Soviet spy ring that was using Western movie productions as cover for their intelligence operations. Think about it, the early 1960s. Western movies were being filmed all over the Southwest, remote locations. International crews. Perfect cover for enemy agents to move money, information, and personnel across borders without raising suspicion. The agency needed operatives who could pass as authentic cowboys, men who could ride, shoot, and act the part so convincingly that they could get close to suspected Soviet agents working in Hollywood's Western productions. For 3 months, Clint trained like his life depended on it. Because it did, he learned advanced horsemanship from ex-rodeo champions. He practiced quick-draw techniques with weapons specialists who trained Navy SEALs. He studied Russian language and Soviet intelligence methods. He learned to fight with his bare hands, to pick locks, to plant listening devices, and to kill a man in 12 different ways using nothing but a leather belt. But most importantly, he learned to become invisible, to blend into any Western movie set so seamlessly that nobody would ever suspect he was anything more than just another hired gun actor. But the mission that changed everything. Faye, in August of 1962, Clint got his assignment. A Western called The Magnificent Seven was being filmed near the Mexican border. Intelligence suggested that the production was being used to smuggle Soviet agents into the United States. Clint's job: get hired as an extra, get close to the suspected agents and gather evidence. What happened next has never been officially documented. But according to classified files that were finally released in 2012, Clint Eastwood didn't just gather evidence. He single-handedly uncovered an entire spy network. The leader of the operation was a man posing as a Hungarian cinematographer. His real name was Dmitry Volkov, a decorated KGB operative who'd been operating in the United States for over a decade. He was using Western film productions to create a pipeline for Soviet agents and stolen military secrets. Clint spent 2 weeks on that set, playing the part of a simple cowboy extra while secretly photographing documents, recording conversations, and tracking the movement of money and personnel. But then something went wrong. Volkov became suspicious. Maybe Clint asked one too many questions. Maybe his cover wasn't as perfect as he thought. Or maybe Volkov was just that good at his job. On the night of August 23, 1962, Dmitry Volkov cornered Clint Eastwood in a horse trailer on the outskirts of the film set. What happened in that trailer would haunt Clint Eastwood for the rest of his life. Faith a confrontation Volkov knew. Somehow he'd figured out that Clint wasn't just another actor looking for his big break. The KGB operative had done his homework, traced Clint's recent activities, noticed inconsistencies in his story. "You are not here for the movies, are you, cowboy?" Volkov said in perfect, unaccented English. Clint had two choices: blow his cover and run, potentially exposing the entire operation and putting other agents at risk, or finish the mission, no matter what the cost. What happened next is why Clint Eastwood never talks about those 3 months, why he gets uncomfortable when interviewers ask about his early training for Western roles, why there are no photographs, no records, no witnesses to what he did between May and August of 1962. Dmitry Volkov never made it off that movie set alive. The official report listed it as an accidental death. A horse had spooked, kicked him in the head. Tragic accident on a dangerous film shoot. These things happened in the early days of Hollywood, before modern safety protocols. But Clint Eastwood knew the truth. And so did the CI. Volkov's death ended Operation Sagebrush, but it also ended something inside Clint Eastwood. The man who walked onto that movie set was an ambitious young actor. The man who walked off was someone different entirely. Someone harder, colder. Someone who'd learned that survival sometimes meant crossing lines that could never be uncrossed. Faye the cover-up. Faye the CIA made sure that Clint's involvement in Operation Sagebrush disappeared completely. New records were created showing that he'd spent those months working at a legitimate cattle ranch in Montana. Character witnesses were paid to tell stories about teaching the young actor to ride and rope. Hollywood was told that Clint had gone off to learn authentic cowboy skills for his career. The perfect cover story. Who would question an actor's dedication to his craft? But the agency made sure that Clint understood the terms of their agreement. He could never speak about what really happened. Not to his family, not to his friends, not to his psychiatrist. The secret would go with him to his grave. In exchange, the CIA would make sure that his acting career received a little assistance. Think about it. How does an unknown actor with only minor television credits suddenly land the lead role in an Italian Western trilogy that would make him an international superstar? How does a fistful of dollars even get made with Clint Eastwood in the lead when he was virtually unknown outside of American television? The agency had connections, investors who owed favors, producers who could be persuaded. Sometimes the best way to maintain a cover story is to make it so successful that nobody ever questions it. Clint Eastwood didn't just become a Western star by accident. He was created by design. A legend built on top of a secret that was buried so deep that even now, 50 years later, most people still don't know the truth. Faye, the psychological cost. Faye, but success came with a price. If you've ever wondered why Clint Eastwood's most famous Western character is known as The man with no name, now you know. It wasn't just a artistic choice, it was psychological truth. The man who killed Dmitry Volkov in that horse trailer couldn't use his real name anymore, not completely. Part of Clint Eastwood Jr. died that night, and what remained was something else. Something harder, more dangerous, more mysterious. Watch those early Western films again. Look at Clint's eyes. That is not acting. That is the 1,000-yard stare of a man who has seen things that most people never will, who has done things that most people never could. The squinting wasn't a character affectation. It was the result of months of scanning horizons for threats, of constantly watching for danger, of never being able to fully trust anyone ever again. When Clint delivers those famous lines, "You feel lucky? Well, do ya, punk?" Or "Make my day," there is something behind those words, a coldness that goes deeper than any script. Because Clint Eastwood knows what it is like to make someone's day end permanently. Faithy hidden references Faye, once you know the truth about Operation Sagebrush. Clint's entire career takes on new meaning. He has been leaving breadcrumbs for 50 years, hiding references to his secret past in plain sight. In The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, his character is called Blondie. But he is also referred to as the man with no name. Sound familiar? That is exactly how CIA operatives were designated in classified documents. No real names, only code designations. In Unforgiven, his character William Money talks about the things he did when he was younger. "I've killed women and children. I've killed just about everything that walks or crawled at one time or another." Dark dialogue for a Western, don't you think? Unless you know that it is not just dialogue. And in Gran Torino, his final acting role, Walt Kowalski is a Korean War veteran who is haunted by the things he did in service to his country, who keeps secrets from his family about his military service, who understands that sometimes good men have to do terrible things to protect the people they love. That is not fiction. That is autobiography disguised as entertainment. Even the way Clint directs films tells the story. He is famous for working quickly, efficiently, with minimal takes. He doesn't like to dwell on scenes, doesn't like to examine things too closely. "Let's move on," he always says. "We got what we need." That is the mentality of a man who learned early that looking too closely at some things, thinking too hard about certain actions, can drive you insane. Faye the legacy lives on Faye. Today, Clint Eastwood is 93 years old. He's won Oscars, directed masterpieces, and become one of the most respected figures in Hollywood history. But he has never spoken publicly about those 3 months in 1962. The few people who knew about Operation Sagebrush are all dead now. The classified documents were released in 2012, but with so many redactions that most researchers dismissed them as routine Cold War paranoia. Only one person knows the complete truth about what really happened on that movie set in August of 1962. And he is not talking. But sometimes, late at night, when Clint Eastwood thinks nobody is watching, you can see it in his eyes. The weight of 50 years of keeping a secret that could never be told. The knowledge that his entire career, his entire public persona, was built on top of a lie. That the man who became America's most beloved cowboy learned to shoot not from Hollywood stuntmen, but from CIA assassins. That his first kill wasn't on screen. It was in a horse trailer on a movie set in the middle of the New Mexico desert, and the blood was real. The Western genre is built on myths. Stories of good guys and bad guys, of justice and revenge, of men who do what needs to be done in a lawless land. But sometimes, the most powerful myths are the ones that are true. Clint Eastwood didn't just play a cowboy. He became one. Not the Hollywood version, but the real thing. A man who rode into danger, faced down his enemies, and rode out again without ever looking back. The only difference: his battles weren't fought with six-shooters at high noon in dusty streets. They were fought in shadows, with silenced weapons and classified orders, in service to a country that could never acknowledge what he'd done. They say that the best actors draw from personal experience, that great performances come from emotional truth. Now you know where Clint Eastwood's performances came from. Every squint, every pause, every deadly stare, all of it real, all of it earned, all of it bought and paid for with a secret that has taken 50 years to tell. The man with no name finally has his story.